point in, well, this region and in history. Because this, standing here, perhaps feeling that cool wisp of air escaping from the earth, perhaps if it was quiet enough, we could hear a slight trickle of water over the ledge leading down into the depths. And we are sharing an experience almost universal to just about anyone and anything that has ventured down into this region of Mammoth Cave. And as we, well, search out that history today, as we walk by that history, well, we're going to share some of the reasons that perhaps those people were drawn to this very spot. And those reasons for those people to say, I want to check out what's down beneath the light's reach. And as we go into your cave today, we will enter into a large room with things in it. You will have thoughts and questions, I do hope. But we're not going to stop there, because we're going to stay to that left-hand side. We're going to go deeper down into your cave, where we'll see more of those earliest people's evidence that they left behind, where we can pick up our story about what exactly they were searching for down in the depths of central Kentucky. But unlike those earliest first visitors, folks, you need a ticket. Right? So please have those tickets ready. Present those to Ranger Jamie as you go by, and if you would, follow two complete strangers to the big old dark hole in the ground, right? There's been a movie or two made about that, I'm pretty sure. Folks, if you will, follow me.
It's a big entrance. Feel the air getting cold. Didn't feel that when we went in the other side, you know. Historic tour. Mammoth Cave, Kentucky. See the long walk ahead. I will pause and re-engage when I'm at the end. So we're getting to the actual entrance on the tour, where they have a door. It's nice and cool, 55 degrees. Do-do-do. Watch your head. Watch your head, tall boy. It's a long, dark tunnel. It goes on for a while. I'm going to pause. I've been walking about 5 minutes now. Holy cow, look at this. Woo! Wow. Look at this. Holy cow. Wow. In memory of our falling comrade of the World War. How about that? Dedicated 1929. The Great War Monuments. Wow. Look at the size of this place. Woo! Man. This thing is huge. Holy cow. My God. Wow. Look at that. This thing is ginormous. Wow. This thing's enormous. This is absolutely crazy enormous. My goodness. I mean, this thing is massive. My goodness. I'm gonna pause it till we get to the top.
It's not gonna work.
It's almost easier just to take the video and then freeze frame it when you get home. That's what I'm doing. So hard to. This is absolutely mammoth.
I see what you did there.
Man. They ain't lying when they say mammoth. My gosh. Whew. Man, this thing's huge. I mean, this is just incredible. My goodness. Gosh, this thing is absolutely enormous. Phew. Might be a Civil War relic. I had Civil War soldiers down here. Holy cow. Whew.
Not exactly unheard of there, right? We have had a question, folks, about earthquakes. Right? It's pretty early in the trip to be asking those questions. Usually that's a couple more minutes down the road, but earthquakes.
Wait till we get in deeper.
We are not far from one of the major fault lines in North America here. About 200 miles east of what's known as the New Madrid Fault Line that basically roughly traces the outline of the Mississippi River, right? And it has been active in times past. However, this place, as we'll come to find out, is significantly older and has seen many, many earthquakes since it has been the void that we stand in. To put this in perspective, folks, I want you to think of a pond, right? You got the ducks swimming on the surface, right? If you take a big old rock in that pond and just throw it in that water, that duck is gonna, it's gonna feel it. But the turtle at the bottom of that pond is barely gonna know you dropped a stone in there. Folks, we're on the bottom of the pond. That energy has manifested itself in waves in areas where you have basically pockets of gas, air, so things can move, right? And so you get those waves, which are the destructive things of an earthquake. But here, this is a solid, right? That energy goes real quick through here, but when it hits this open expanse of air, of gas, well, it stops. So when you're down here in Mammoth Cave, if there were an earthquake, chances are we would never even know until people start calling down here from the surface saying, there's been a couple of tremors on the surface. Right? And that has happened. Windows have broke in the visitor center and cave tours have been happening and never even knew that there was an earthquake.
Wow.
Right? Pretty wild stuff. That energy is focused mostly above us. And we'll come to find out a little bit of the geology. I'm not going to talk a lot about geology today. I'll touch on that topic here momentarily. Right? Folks, usually doing pretty good. There's a little bit of a gap, right? As a young ranger, I was concerned when I first showed up here. I went to my supervisors and I said, "Supervisors, what's keeping people from just walking off the tour?" And they said, "Nothing." Right? Thank you, Ranger. And I said, "Well, what happens if I come back with less than I started with?" They looked at me dead in the eye and they said, "Ranger Alex, do you know who we are?" I said, "The National Park Service?" They're like, "Yeah, part of the United States federal government. As such, we're entitled to lose 15% and nobody asks any questions." All jokes aside, folks, all jokes aside, welcome, right? I have two final pieces of advice for you here before we dive into our subject today. One, the pace that I set coming down here is about the one we're going to have for the rest of the tour. Should you, for whatever reason, require or desire a slower pace in your tour today, I invite you to come up front closer to where I'll be walking. I should be the slowest person in your tour here today. I don't care why it is. If you need a slower pace, up front's where you want to be. And my second piece of advice to you today is, at least down here, please don't see Mammoth Cave through a screen. Right? Capture those memories, satisfy those Instagram followers, make those TikToks, right? But no device is going to capture what we're going to experience today, folks, because you stepped in it now. With just a few strides of our feet, we've left behind the world we know on the surface. We've entered this strange and bizarre place. And if we go back in history, well, this strange and bizarre place, in modern man's words, is first described all the way back in the late 18th century. So we're talking the 1790s, back when, well, we would have been in the county of Kentucky, a county of Virginia. The western frontier of European settlement would have seen these lands parceled out in 200 acres, gifted to those Revolutionary War service members, encouraging them to embrace that, well, pretty American tradition of manifest destiny, spreading westward, expanding, and carving out your destiny from the wilds of the West. And those land grants, that is where our first modern understanding of Mammoth Cave arises. 200 acres of subprime farmland with banks overlooking the Green River tucked within was noted as a Peter Cave, a name which would come to belie the very first use of modern man here in a cave they would come to call Mammoth. And so our story begins. Those European descendants on that western edge would have been reliant on the rich riverways, the ample timber in the hills and hollers of Kentucky for their survival, food, water, and shelter. And they would have brought with them the knowledge that perhaps if they were fortunate enough to find, an abandoned river passageway with loose, dry, loamy dirt sheltered from the elements, or better yet, an expansive limestone cavern in the hillsides with that loose, loamy, dry dirt, they could leverage what was within into something very necessary for survival on that western frontier. And folks, that's what you've been walking by. You've no doubt seen some of the artifacts left behind by those times. Almost immediately as you walked in on your right-hand side, the logs in the dirt. They would switch to the left-hand side as you came through that large room, vats, square timbers sitting in the middle, and that speaks to the industrial operation that was taking place here. 1808, 1809. This operation was in full swing. Dozens of men down here collecting, well, the valuables from the floor that you stand upon. Dirt. The top 2, 3, maybe 4 feet of dirt from this room itself was removed, taken back to those square boxes called leaching vats. 4 or 5 tons of dirt held within each of those vats, and that small trickle of water, not so small after a rain, was collected, funneled down into the depths using what they had in abundance, the state tree of Kentucky. Tulip poplars, hollowed out, fluted and flared, stuck together, serving as conduits, bringing that water down to the depths and allowing it to wash and soak through those large vats of dirt. And a few days after that process began, a frothy, muddy substance dripped into the troughs beneath, and the miners would call it niter beer. What they had successfully done was wash what's called calcium nitrate from the dirt, the result of drying limestone bacterial action in the dirt, as well as the massive colonies of bats that would cloak these very chambers we stand in, so thick you could not see stone. Folks, like all living creatures, bats poop. Yeah, guano would add further nitrates to the top 3 feet of soil here. And by washing those nitrates out, you had them in an easily transportable liquid form. Pumping stations would push that liquid back out to the surface. It was collected in large cauldrons over an open flame, brought to a boil. Water billowing out of that mixture, ash from an old fire perhaps added during that process, and you have changed the chemistry from calcium to potassium nitrate, a preservative, folks. What you have in a jar of pickles or a can of preserved meat, if you look at those ingredients, it's going to say some type of nitrate. And as that water was boiled away, leaving behind brownish crystals, they would scrape them up, package them in a box, and ship them to a far-flung land called Delaware. Delaware, right? To a young French immigrant, a chemist with the last name of DuPont. Upon receiving these shipments from the heart of Kentucky, he would add just the right amount of sulfur and charcoal to that raw ingredient, and all of a sudden, you have something that combusts with ferocity when touched to a flame. You have black gunpowder, by the hundreds of thousands of pounds rendered from this cave we call Mammoth. Far more than the few folks who dotted the landscape could ever hope to use on the surface for hunting and survival. Because, folks, this was for the preservation of something far greater. During these operational periods, tensions were growing on the world stage between a collection of separatist states and a global superpower in the monarchy of Great Britain across the Atlantic. Tensions would rise, embargoes would put in place, and a young nation searching for the means of standing on its own 2 feet on the global stage, the means of waging war, all of a sudden was forced to look inwards, literally and figuratively, to the means of finding out who and what they were. Finding a little piece of that here in the heart of Kentucky, producing the gunpowder for the war that occurred on the year of 1812. You folks know the name of that conflict. You might even know a little bit about what transpired. But I guarantee you, you all know the words. The rocket's red glare and the bombs bursting in air that gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Folks, that rocket's red glare and that bomb burst in air very well could have contained a little bit of the gunpowder rendered from the halls you stand in today. As a young nation searching for who and what they were, found them in no small part here in the heart of Kentucky. Folks, as we go up this hill, a completely man-made structure of tailings from that mining operation, I want you to go back to that time. To imagine the dark, smoky cavern, cold and wet, the drip, drop of a leaky pipe, the smell of wet cave dirt, and the sound of song wafting through these passages, as the people who made that operation possible will play a very pivotal role in the later history of Mammoth Cave. Folks, how you doing? Pretty good?
Great. Good.
You ready to go see more?
Yeah, buddy.
If you would, follow me.
Pause it at the top of the hill there. Pause it here. pause it again.
Look at this thing. Yeah, that's the same. I know, it's the same thing. So when you saw that, you know it was going wrong. You don't want that first
This place is just amazing.
just in certain spots. And that must have been the price.
Big old rock fell. I rode on that one. Water riding over there.
So good to have you here in your case. Very good to know. Come on in. Gather round. More stories to tell. Yeah, scoot on in here, everyone. Come on in. There's a lot of us to about that saltpeter operation. Folks, in the build-up all the way through the War of 1812, business was good. The quality of product was such from Mammoth Cave that, well, Mr. DuPont would pay a premium. Upwards of $1 a pound. At the height of that conflict of the War of 1812, Mr. DuPont was paying that. It made the owners of Mammoth Cave very wealthy. Right? Hundreds of thousands of pounds, $1 a pound roughly. Yeah, you do the math. But after that conflict ended, 1815, folks, we like to say the market for saltpeter petered out. Right? The bottom fell out of it. You couldn't give the stuff away. And so Mammoth Cave shuttered its operations. And it went through an identity crisis. What on earth are the owners of this place? Well, what are they to do with it? How are they going to keep the lights on? And folks, in the year of 1816, something I still am baffled by, something absolutely crazy happened. The management, who had houses and living quarters on the surface, one day they heard a knock on their door. And it was somebody standing there, looking at them in the face and saying, I hear tell of the strange and bizarre cavernous spaces, the stories, and the spooky walks. that are just underneath foot here. Would you mind taking us down there, showing us around? Here's some money. Right? What a wild idea, folks. Paying hard-earned cash to go see a hole in the ground. 206 years later, folks. Nobody stopped doing it. Right? Tourism. 1816, first tour here. That was the thing that saved Mammoth Cave. Right? And as you came down these passageways, they're not telling you about the saltpeter operation that just ended a year ago. Right? Because that's yesterday's news. That wood was bonfire, benches. They weren't telling you of the ancient underground rivers that carved through a solid chunk of limestone, dissolving it away as it did so, leaving behind these labyrinth of passageways we explore today. They didn't understand that well enough yet. Folks, you came down here pretty much for one reason and one reason only. Because this place is weird. You came down here because you kind of wanted to be scared, right? And we're going to go there, right? We're going to go back in time. Because right over here is a little time machine. And we're going to go see what your earliest cave tours look like. You better have more oil than that if you're doing a cave tour, but it might suffice. Let's take it back in time. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to your cave tour 1816, folks. This is it. Gone are the long lengths of cave you can see in electric lights. Swaddled instead are you in this uniform orb of light. And as you met your guide at the old guide's house just above the entrance of the cave, they would have handed you one of these. A New England whale oil lantern. Far from New England, and having run out of whales long ago here in Kentucky, you'd have a little bit of a problem. So what are you going to fuel your tours with? Well, folks, here in the Commonwealth, we'll fry just about anything. So you went to the hotel kitchen. You collected that grease, the drippings from bacon and steak and frying all kinds of stuff. You filled up your lanterns, and you came down here with a tour that smelled delicious. Down here in that flicker of light, the glass being expensive and delicate here, and if you've ever committed the sin of burning bacon, you'll know just how sooty and smoky that fat flame can be. So they just got rid of it, leaving you an exposed flame flickering and dancing along your tours. Tours that would not be like what we have today. Folks, today, you have a whole screen of tours. Like a dozen in the summertime you can choose from here. In those earliest days of cave tours, folks, you had two. You had what was known as the short tour, and you had what was known as the long tour, right? Folks, who wants to go on that short tour today? Anybody? Who here wants to go on that long tour with us? Yeah, I like the cut of your jib, folks. Who here wants more information?
Woo!
Yeah, you're my folks. Folks, that short tour might have taken you 6 to 8 hours. But you want that long tour, right? Folks, that long tour might have been 11, 12, 13 hours in length. You were down here the entire day. And it's not just because you got to explore almost wherever you wanted to, curious visitors poking down passageways. But you also didn't have a path like what you stand on now.
Oh,
You were
yeah.
scrambling over these rocky boulders once you were away from the mining area. Gentlemen, you came here in your best three-piece suit, a top hat, a little walking stick, thin, slick leather-soled shoes, and a monocle. Ladies, you were not to be outdone, right? You're really wealthy traveling here. You were what we might call the 1%. And you showed it all. Ladies, you had these big old skirts coming down here, right? Boots laced up to your knees, and a parasol in case rocks fell. How do we know these things? Because we find them in the rocks. Heels of those boots, right? canes tossed aside, top hats left and forgotten, and corsets sliced off because I imagine they're just terrible in or out of a cave. And those were your tours. That's why it might have taken you half a day to explore. And you're not talking about those recent histories, the geology here, folks. You came down here and you let your mind wander. Right? Let your mind wander. And maybe your eyes start to drift around these rooms. And like looking at clouds, you start to see features and things that would define your experience. Maybe you'd heard of the rivers that flow to the lowest depths of Mammoth Cave, dark and still, with the whispers of sirens beckoning those weak of will down into the depths. But folks, we don't have to go all the way down to the rivers at the lowest level of Mammoth Cave to find a siren, a mermaid, because she's right here in this very room. You just have to look at the ceiling. You see her right there? Her cleft tail, her arm outstretched beckoning to the fish, her hair flowing upwards in the current. Yeah. Or maybe you'd been introduced to this place by a young boy, shooting and wounding his black bear, tracking it down here to recover his prize. Well, little John Houchin's bear, whether it was discovered or not, we do not know. But we can show you where it is. Again, right here on the ceiling. Right? Folks, you gotta be a little creative. Didn't have Instagram back in the 19th century, folks. You gotta use your imagination, right? Or perhaps, being the good puritanical visitor in those days, you'd have come simply by going deeper into the earth. You'd have gotten closer to that place that ends with the 2 hockey sticks. Yeah. Lording over steps that will lead you deeper into the earth is none other than the Grim Reaper himself, pointing you down into Dante's gateway here. Folks, we'll go there in a moment. Folks, you're shivering in your boots right about now. That's what your tour was. Or perhaps you come here wondering about a giant that slumbers in this very chamber before you, in a coffin.
Oh.
A giant. And maybe your tour guides, right, took their lanterns and manipulated it and made the coffin lid look at the shadow beneath behind.
It does. Oh, that's wild.
Right, that's cutting edge technology, folks.
Yeah, baby.
That is the spooky stuff you came
Yeah,
down
baby.
here for. Right? Those were your earliest tours. And as you're down here for all day, they fed you. Right? Ranger Jamie might have been carrying a basket of fried chicken, maybe some green beans, apple pie, and maybe some of Kentucky's native spirit for some liquid courage during those more, well, dangerous types of tours. Right? But you had to be careful with your New England whale oil lantern, right? Because should you have a little bit too much, well, joviality after lunch, or perhaps you went into a wet section of the cave, all it took was a single error, and you would find yourself in the darkest of places. Folks, if we can embrace this moment, cover up them smart watches, you will experience darkness unlike anything else. It does not matter how long you spend down here. With this lack of light, you will never see more than what you see here. This is a completely lightless world. One that, despite all its differences to the one we know so well, is host to roughly 140 different species of life, from crickets to spiders, bats, and at the lowest depths, fish, islets, skin translucent, swimming through those dark pools. Alongside might crawl an alabaster white crayfish, just like the ones on our surface, but again, having long lost the use of eyes, well, relegating that energy to another sense, such as feel and smell, to navigate in this different world. Pretty crazy. Now, folks, we've spent some time together already today, right? We've covered a good bit of history and distance, and I'd like to take the moment to entertain any questions you might have. You just simply raise your hand. Let's see here.
Without a cell phone.
Folks, after getting used to that darkness, all it takes is a teeny little flame to light the way.
Yeah.
There's probably a metaphor in there for life.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can't get back down here.
Yeah, look at how much you can see. You see the roof and everything.
Yeah.
See if the lights work for us. There we go.
There we go.
Now, folks, our tour is going to get a little bit different, right? Gone will be these big passageways. We will descend down. The number of stairs will come up, and the ceiling will come down. Okay? Please be careful. Use those handrails and watch those steps. Right? We will be crossing over some pivotal pieces of Mammoth Cave's history. Places like Side Saddle Pit, the Bottomless Pit, right? The only 105-foot deep bottomless pit we know of. Right? If you're scared of heights, don't look down. And then we will come to that one thing that has been lingering in the back of everybody's mind. The place we fondly call Fat Man's Misery. Right? And this, folks, is where you can break a rule. Fat Man's Misery is so constrictive that even if you do not wish to touch the cave is going to touch you. So if you need to use your hands to get through there, you can. It looks a little different. Then if you have to, ask, am I at Fat Man's Misery yet? The answer is no, folks. It's pretty obvious, okay? So, if you would, please follow me.
All right, all right, all right. That was dark.
I can still see the coffin.
Yeah, that was cool. I like that when he did it with the flashlight. It did look like a coffin. It had some sound effects.
Like, oh, I can see how does that work?
Yeah.
No, but it was cool. Like, I could see the mermaids. The only thing I couldn't see was the fairy.
I didn't see the mermaid.
I saw the mermaid.
I couldn't see the mermaid either.
Good, that made you feel better.
Yep, I looked for it, couldn't see it.
Right here.
Before they had all these nice steps here, how hard this was to get down. There were a lot of broken bones.
It's annoying. I don't know why.
I mean, there's like no way to explain it. It's just complete darkness. And I feel like
To get you right. Some writing on the ceiling over there too. I don't know what it says.
So you can see the edge of the stairs.
Pretty steep. It does, doesn't it? Yep, tall guys are in trouble. Lucky for me, I'm just fat. Woo! Oh yeah. You can do it limbo, 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 limbo.
Yeah, it must be nice to be able to.
Oh, it's chilly.
Sound doesn't really travel.
I only found one cave that would echo on the first tour. Yeah, it was just one part of the cave. It would echo nowhere else. Kind of weird.
I mean, it's just a vacuum, so you think, but I guess there's so much sound and bounce off of. You might get a late, you know, you can hear
A good place for Halloween down here.
No, Dad, do you see like the sunglasses? I mean, I spotted that.
All right. Wow. How about that? 1832. And when you hear me crying, you'll know.
What he's saying, buddy, it's gonna be really tight, and you'll know when you're there. This is
You'll hear me going, help, help.
Well, good thing I checked this off my bucket list when I was still small.
That's true.
smart.
Oh, what do we got? A big gorge here at the right here? Wow. It's pretty good, pretty deep though. Wow, it's pretty deep, ain't it? Good gracious.
Don't know, it's forming. You see the water.
Holy. Is that a shoe or something down there? Yeah. Don't get a hand spasm and drop my phone, right? Maybe I better use two. Oh, wow. It goes way up, too. Water dripping on you. Watch it. Man, this place is something else, man. Holy cow.
Can you imagine laying this concrete?
Oh my goodness. Just bringing it down here.
Yeah.
Having to mix it because you couldn't pump it down. It's too far. Wheelbarrow at a time. Old school. I'm glad they did though because it's nice. Wow, look at that. Really?
Yeah.
No kidding. Wow. It's crazy, isn't it? Holy cow. Woo. Wow. That is neat. Wow. Holy cow. My goodness. Wow. Wow. This is just incredible. Good gracious. Wow. Whew, getting below there. This is just incredible. Oh my goodness. If you can come here, folks, you need to make a trip here. This is incredible. Names, scribble on the rocks now. All kinds of writing around these rocks. Oh, yeah, exactly.
Where's the guy?
Wow.
Can I touch it? Right there.
Wow. Now crouch down. My goodness. Low rush. Water come on. Came through the water here. That's wild.
Jeremiah, pay attention to where you are right now. Okay? You'll get there. It is.
That man's misery. See that?
Dad, he's right.
Well, there's your sign. Fat man's misery. Coming up here. I'm a little fat, but I lost 25 pounds, so hopefully it won't be too bad. It's really neat through here, though. Oh, this is really cool. Wow, look how narrow that is. Fat man's misery. I love the shape of the rocks. This is so neat. Wow, this is so cool. Wow, this is neat. Holy cow. Yeah, aren't they though? Marco! Wow. I mean, this sucker's nasty. Ow! Got me. Hit my noggin. Knocked some sense into me, maybe. That was fun. You gotta hit your head at least once or you didn't do it right. Whew. We got bathrooms there if you need to go. Man, that was really cool. Wow, I was gonna pop my head good in there. Wow, that my head's laid all that writing and stuff there. Oh, so much. They wrote that 200 years ago. A lot of them put their names all there. Made that work down here getting the saltpeter like they said. That's really neat. That was neat, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I like that. I hit my head once real good. What's that up there? That's neat.
That's like
It wasn't?
It's a caliper.
That looks neat, don't it?
No, it looks
I
like
like it.
It's a crocodile.
That'll work.
It's a crocodile.
Yeah, that works.
Like that. It's a crocodile.
Wow, this is wild.
Okay, that's actually cool. It's like, just like a coconut.
Is it a band? Sequoia, something band.
What is that?
1830, something band, 1835 or 55, 55. Thank you. Couldn't have to see it.
I saw a 1963 one.
Really?
1972.
Oh, cool. I hadn't seen one that new. I saw one 67 the year I was born, but oh, look at the color of those rocks. Isn't that neat? I don't know if it's that soot from the old lanterns, but that's really cool. Yeah, the way it's sooty and all, it's just got a neat appearance.
Can't wait for Tom in. Come on, Daddy. Daddy's gonna have a like one on Tom in this video.
426 miles of cave that have been explored. You can access every square mile of that from this room.
Wow.
Meaning you would be down here for the rest of your life exploring and you would never see the surface. No one person's seen it all, but ever since the 1950s, that activity, the exploration, the documentation, the discovery of this place has been handled by a partner organization called the Cave Research Foundation. You might hear about CRF. And those are the fine and crazy people in charge of, well, spending days at a time sometimes underground, bringing back the knowledge of what this place is. And most of the time, that 426 miles, folks, somebody's going to be there once. It's not like this, right? Sometimes it might take 2 or 3 days just to get to a section of the cave we have not mapped and explored, just to be off the edge of the cave. So for maybe 4 days of work, you get 1 day of mapping, right? Yeah, you're not getting a tan during that job. So, if you want, they're all volunteers. You can join your National Speleological Society or chapter, wherever you call home. There's probably a chapter there. You get the skills. You use compasses and maps and declometers and measuring tape the same way you would survey on the surface, right? Minus the GPS because it don't work yet. And you bring that information back to you. Done still today, largely the same as it's been done ever since people have been active. We don't like change. Change that. Any fossils? I do work with some really old park rangers. They're not even here to defend themselves, folks. Fossils.
We'll tell Charlie.
Indeed. Folks, the story of limestone is similar for the majority of places it's found. Limestone is a sedimentary rock that typically forms on the bottom of waterways, ancient seas. And that's exactly what took place here in what we call Kentucky now. Well, it used to be just south of the equatorial line, and it used to be covered by a vast, warm, shallow sea. And think of the stuff you're finding in a shallow sea, folks. You got things like coral, which we find in the wall. You got things like mussels and clams, the bivalve, which we find in the wall. You got things like brachiopods and crinoids, fossilized in the wall. And you've got things like sharks. Not a whole lot of calcium-rich bones in sharks, but they sure have a lot of teeth in that front end, right? And that's what sticks around. All those sea creature bones, teeth, shells, scales, combined, grind up, and are compressed into the strata of what a geologist calls calcium carbonate. It's limestone. That's every single stone you're going to see. You can point anywhere in here, Mammoth, and say limestone, and you're going to be right. And we do find fossils of those ancient sea creatures. They're telling us of the story, of the history of this place. Well, back when it was an ancient ocean, well, at this level of cave, maybe 280 million years ago. So a couple weeks. Oh, well,
Somebody died.
Mario? No, Pac-Man. I don't know. I'm old. Yeah. Are there artifacts from about 5,000 years ago? I will answer that in a story. Anything else weighing on your mind?
Is there any idea how many miles are still in this line?
Is there any idea how many more miles we have left to uncover? There are some geologists and hydrologists, right? Because these are all connected through a subterranean labyrinth of waterways, right? And sometimes we'll just pour dye, non-toxic, down into those holes, and we'll try to find where they come out. sometimes we never find it.
Huh.
We don't know where some of those rivers enter or exit. So when we look at that, and then when we look at the ridges that run throughout this section of Kentucky, and the caves are in those ridges. It reflects the down cutting of the water table through here, the water table we call the Green River today. And at one point, this was mostly flat as those highest elevation caves were being formed. And as the valleys cut into those passageways like this one, well, it cut them off. And so when we're looking at the expanse of this place, we're tracking where that water goes, we're looking at the valleys, and we're trying to find connections at the lowest parts of the valley. River passageways that cut underneath the Green River. And during low water events, when we start to tally up the potential of connections between the known cave system here of 426 miles and the other ridges that we haven't connected to Mammoth Cave yet, it gives us a pretty big number. Right? Some of our geologists, our hydrologists speculate, or let's just not call it speculate, they hypothesize, a very well-informed guess that we may have only discovered half
Wow.
of what Mammoth Cave actually is.
Only half.
So we're
Maybe
already the
800.
world's longest cave.
Maybe 800.
Could there be other ones longer than we out there? Yes.
Possible.
Right? We have a lot of things going for it. Right? Mammoth Cave is easy to explore. It's not cold. It's not deep. The deepest underground you can be in Mammoth Cave is about 430 feet. Right? Not 2,000 like some other caves.
Wow.
Right? We're not cold. We're around large population centers. You can get on a highway and drive through. It's pretty easy to get to. You don't have to hike through the jungle or climb up a mountain in the Alps. Right? So,
A lot of
are there
country
other
roads
caves
almost
in the
one
world
lane.
potentially longer than Mammoth Cave? Why not? Right? But the ingredients, all of those things factored together, have come together here in Kentucky to give you the world's longest cave hole.
110 people on this tour.
Come on in.
It takes a
How
while.
was all that tight squeezing for us? Yeah, the real caves in the day. Yeah. That's okay, right? It's not It's okay. As long as I'm going to assume that was not intentional, then I can forgive it.
Well, I didn't touch the rock.
You know, you saw how that rock looked different through Fat Man's vision,
All right,
right?
I'm gonna
It's
pause
all
here. This is the
polished
end
and
of
kind of
part one.
plastic